name is Jim Apodaca, and I'm an OKR coach and Agile Transformation Specialist. I'm also the president and founder of Apodaca Consulting, where we specialize in OKRs, Agile Transformation, and Change Management. And I've been fortunate to partner with Synergita to bring you this webinar series on OKRs. In today's webinar, we'll be focusing on OKRs and business delivery. So let's get started. For our learning objectives today, we'll do a brief recap on the series so far, including taking a look at the OKR foundations, that being the different types of OKR definitions as well as the different types of OKRs, right? We'll also look at OKRs and change management, and the importance of embracing change management when implementing your OKR program. We'll take a look at the implementation parameters, those 10 key questions that you want to make sure that you've addressed prior to implementing your OKR program. And then we'll take a look at the OKR scoring methods, those 3 different types of scoring methods that you can use when implementing your OKR program. And we'll also take a look at the OKR cycle, those 3 different phases that are associated with a healthy OKR implementation. And then we'll wrap it all up with OKRs and business delivery and how we go from strategy to execution, okay? So during our OKR Foundations webinar, we looked at a number of different areas, but we started off by asking the question, why OKRs and why now? And why it's important for organizations to understand that question when adopting the OKR framework. Are we adopting OKRs because we read a book over the weekend and because Google did it? Or are we adopting OKRs because we just closed our Series A and we want to be the market leader in our industry? And in order to do so, we need to scale our product as well as our tech stack, as well as our product and engineering teams, right? 2 totally different reasons in terms of why we're adopting OKRs, right? So know why you're adopting OKRs. And if you're doing it because Google did it, you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons, okay? We also looked at OKR definitions, including the objective, that being that qualitative goal, right? The market leader in our industry, as well as the key result, that's that quantitative outcome that we're going for. We want to own 20% of the market, right? So objective being that qualitative goal, key result being that quantitative outcome that we're going for, okay? And then we looked at the different types of OKRs. We looked at our strategic and tactical OKRs. The strategic OKRs being those company OKRs. Typically those are your annual OKRs, right? Synonymous with annual OKRs. And then we looked at our tactical OKRs, synonymous with quarterly OKRs. Those tactical OKRs being the things that we do throughout the year in order to support our strategic OKRs, right? So that annual company OKR. And then we looked at the 3 different types of OKRs. Aspirational, that being those moonshots that we take, right? Those 10% of likelihood of hitting that goal. That's our aspirational goals. Committed key results. Those are 100% that we're committing to, right? We're saying we will hit this goal. SOC 2 compliance may be an example of that. But when we're looking at committed OKRs, because we are saying we're 100% that we're going to hit that goal, when we don't, that's when we want to be concerned, right? And we want to retrospect on that because we committed to doing it, and if we're unable to hit that, we want to know why, okay? And then milestone key results. That being that key result where we're launching our MVP, for example, okay? And then we looked at the importance of creating shared OKRs. So this way we're creating shared OKRs based on what's best for the company, right? We're creating OKRs that align across multiple departments. And this way that helps us to prevent creating those silos that we often see, right? Traditionally, we see as OKR coaches, we commonly see that companies will implement OKRs based on their organizational structure, and that makes sense, right? I mean, it kind of, I would look there too. But the challenge with that and the problem with that is that when we create based on organizational structure, oftentimes we create siloed OKRs, okay? So marketing is creating marketing OKRs, sales is creating sales OKRs, right? And so on and so forth. So we're creating those siloed OKRs. So we're doing what's best for the silo rather than what's best for the company, right? So the importance of creating shared OKRs. And then we looked at the OKR example here, and we used that example throughout the course. So during our OKRs and change management webinar, we looked at a number of different areas, but we started off by looking at some industry statistics including a 2022 Gallup survey based on employee engagement. The survey went out to roughly 70,000 participants, and respondents fell into one of three buckets. 32% fell into the engaged bucket. These are the employees that are vested in what they're doing, right? They enjoy their job. They're going above and beyond to do what is best to get their job done. And so 32% fell into that bucket. 18% fell into that actively disengaged bucket. These are people that are just checked out, right? They're unhappy with their job. Oftentimes they bring down the morale of the rest of the team, and they're just unpleasant to be around, right? 18% fall into that actively disengaged bucket, and then 50% fall into that not engaged, right? They're showing up, they're doing their job, but they're just not engaged. They're not invested in the work that they're doing, right? And so roughly what this survey tells us is that almost 70% of your workforce falls into the actively disengaged or not engaged bucket, right? And the reason that's important is when you're implementing your OKR program, this is a change management component, right? It's understanding how your organization is currently structured when it comes to employee engagement, and what you can do to, as part of your OKR program, to help drive that engagement, right? And this is particularly important for those companies looking to integrate OKRs with individual performance management, right? So just some interesting statistics from the Gallup survey there. Another interesting statistic that we looked at was the top 3 priorities. This was an MIT study that was done, and what they found was that of the leadership teams out there, how many of them can actually name the top 3 priorities within for the company, and 51% of your executive team can name the top 3 priorities. 22% of senior execs can name those top 3 priorities, and progressively it gets worse as you work your way down through the organization. 18% of middle managers and 13% of frontline leads can name the top 3 priorities, and this is just 3 priorities that we're talking about. How many organizations do you know out there have a top 5 list or a top 6 list, right? These giant lists of priorities. But we struggle with naming just the top 3, okay? And so when it comes to implementing your OKR program, it's important to be aligned on why you're implementing that program, right? Again, going back to why OKRs and why now. We also looked at what is change management. Change management coming in the form of 2 different flavors, right? Adaptive change management. These are things like an employee work from home policy or a computer usage type of policy, right? Things of that nature. In contrast, you have transformational projects. That's an OKR implementation, right? That's where roles are changing and tools that we use are different. The way we structure ourselves is different, right? So 2 different types of change management, adaptive and transformational. And then we looked at the 5 steps to change management, including preparing for change, right? That's creating the why OKRs and why now, and being able to communicate that to the organization in terms of why we're going through this change. Providing that vision and roadmap, right? Helping people understand this is what change looks like. This is what we can anticipate as part of that change. This is what's going on, this particular month, and what we can expect 2 months down the road, right? Provide people with that roadmap in terms of what that change looks like, so that they can understand kind of where they fit in, right? And help them understand how they fit into that framework, okay? And then implementing the changes. With OKRs, the rule of thumb is less is more when you're new to OKRs, okay? So when it comes to implementing OKRs, we want to start with healthy teams that are that embrace those types of changes, right? That are accustomed to performing well, right? So a well-performing Scrum team may be a good place to start. Things of that nature, right? So we want to implement those changes in a healthy way so that our program does take off and it does start to create that adoption throughout the rest of the organization, okay? And then embedding those changes. That's a matter of being diligent with our OKR program, right? Committing to it, committing to the ceremonies that are required in order for our OKR program to be successful, committing to the roles and the responsibilities, right? Embedding that change into the organization. And then we want to look at progress and results. That's reflecting on our OKR program, right? How well is it is it going? What are the learnings that we're getting from this framework, right? Are we winning, and what does that look like? Are we failing, and what does that look like, right? Where are those learning opportunities? And we want to take those learnings, especially where we start to see our program have those successes, and use that as a catalyst to start to scale our program throughout the organization. Okay, so just a little bit there on OKRs and change management. Okay, so in the OKR implementation parameters webinar, we talked about the 10 key questions that organizations want to make sure that they've addressed prior to implementing their OKR program, okay? And that includes at what level will we set our OKRs? Are we setting them at the company level? Are we setting them at the department level? At the individual employee level, right? Where are we setting those OKRs? And if you're new to OKRs and you're considering OKRs for to have employees set individual OKRs, I would caution against that. And I speak from firsthand experience. The very first OKR implementation I did, we rolled out to the entire organization, 120 people, and that included individual employee OKRs, and it was a nightmare to manage, but there was a ton of learning in it. Again, so caution if you're considering rolling out OKRs to the employee level, especially for that first OKR implementation. How many OKRs will we set? The adage less is more is true with OKRs, okay? So 2 to 3 is typically what you'll see. 3 to 5 for some of those more mature OKR programs. But if it's your first OKR implementation, 1 to 2 is ideal, right? With your first OKR implementation, it's not about setting a bunch of OKRs, right? It's about learning and becoming familiar with the framework and the process and the cadence, okay? So it's not about setting a bunch of OKRs, and we commonly see this as coaches, right? These backlogs become OKRs, and we've just got a ton of OKRs, so no, we don't want to do that, okay? So less is more when it comes to how many OKRs will we set. How long is an OKR cycle? So with OKRs, we're looking for that constant feedback, right? That feedback loop is short in that sense. And so you'll typically see your OKR cycles around 3 months. But that doesn't mean that it has to fall within your traditional quarters, okay? So it's not uncommon to start your OKR cycle in February rather than in January, right? And the reason that we do that is because it's not uncommon for all these end of month or end of quarter, end of year activities that need to take place, right? These reporting things that we have to do, and accounting and all of this stuff, right? That has to this end of quarter stuff that has to happen, right? And so the reason we break up our OKR cycle to fall outside of that is because we don't want that to be more stuff that has to get done at the end of the quarter, okay? So when we have our OKRs fall outside of that, it allows us to commit more time to those OKRs, okay? And it's not more stuff that we have to do, okay? How will we score our OKRs? There's 3 different scoring methods, okay? And identifying which scoring method is going to work best for you in your organization, it's definitely a conversation that you want to have, okay? And so how will we score our OKRs? Are metric, baseline, and milestone key results acceptable, right? We also want to have that conversation in terms of the type of OKRs that we're crafting, and what does that look like, right? What does a metric key result look like? What does a baseline key result metric look like? So on and so forth with a milestone key result, right? We want to make sure that we're having those conversations as well. Where will we draft, publish, and track our OKRs? This is where a tool like Synergita is perfect for that, okay? It becomes your source of truth for tracking your OKRs. We know where we're drafting them. They're in Synergita, right? Where are we publishing them? They're in Synergita, right? And where are we tracking them, updating them? Well, we're updating them in Synergita, right? And so this is where a tool like Synergita is ideal for that. If you are considering tracking them in a spreadsheet, it's not ideal to do that, especially with the tools that are on the market. And Synergita is a great tool for that, and it's an affordable tool for that as well. Okay, so where will we draft, publish, and track our OKRs? OKRs and performance management, we want to make sure that we've had that conversation as well, especially for those organizations that are considering adopting OKRs for individual performance management. And I say that because this is becoming a more and more common conversation. But we want to understand exactly what does the link between OKRs and performance management mean. How does it link to compensation, and really be thorough with that understanding there. Okay, so OKRs and performance management, and then OKRs and KPIs. We want to understand how those OKRs are relating back to our KPIs, but we also want to avoid the assumption that I can just take my KPIs and turn them into OKRs and bam, I'm good, right? No, OKRs and KPIs are two different things, okay? But we do want to understand how they relate, okay? But don't take your KPIs and turn them into OKRs, okay? We don't do that. And then alignment from the bottom up on the key results, okay? That's making sure that we've worked with our teams to understand how they contribute to those key results, what they're capable of as a team, right? And we take into consideration the business as usual work that they're working on, as well as that aspirational OKR piece, right? They're the ones that are executing on that. They're the ones that are committing to the OKRs, and so we want to make sure that we've solicited their input and that they've contributed to that to that key result, okay? And then last but not least, we want to make sure what our roles are and how those OKR roles are changing. Who owns what now, right? How have my responsibilities changed? Who's my OKR lead? Who do I go to, right? Who's my OKR coach if I need help, right? We want to make sure that we've had those conversations and we know our roles and responsibilities, okay? Okay, and here we looked at the OKR scoring methods, and when we looked at the OKR scoring methods webinar, we looked at the 3 different types of scoring methods, okay, and that includes the radical focus method, the measure what matters method, and the stretch, target, and commit method, okay. With the radical focus method, it's if you're familiar with Christina Wadicki, she's well known with the radical focus method, and it's ideal for organizations that are looking for simplicity. Okay, and the way it works is that your OKRs you start off with a 50% confidence level of achieving that. Okay, and then you either hit it at the end of the quarter, right, and you give yourself a 1. Or you miss and you give yourself a 0, right? So the scoring is very binary in that sense. But the one thing that is important to note with the radical focus method is that we're constantly updating our confidence level throughout the OKR cycle, right? And so the beauty in doing that is that it allows us to gauge whether or not we're going to hit our key result. And for example, if we're 2 weeks out and we're at a 10% confidence level that we're going to hit our goal, should we really continue down that path, right? Is that the best use of our time if we know that we're not going to hit that goal, right? So the radical focus method. Measure what matters falls into 2 categories, aspirational or committed. With the aspirational scoring methods, you give yourself a 0.3 if you've made some progress, okay? 0.7 if you've hit your target, and a 1.0 if you've exceeded your target, okay? A couple of things to note with exceeding your target, though. If you're constantly hitting 1.0, don't think you're crushing it, okay? More than likely, you're not being aspirational enough, okay? And so just because you're crushing it doesn't mean you're crushing it, okay? So just to note with exceeding your aspirational key results. And then you've got the committed key result. That's 100% achievable, and that goes back to where we were talking about, well, if you have a committed key result and you don't hit that key result, what's that indicative of, right? Why did we miss that? We basically said we should have hit that. It was 100%, right? So make sure we retrospect on those committed key results when we do come up short, okay? And then the stretch, target, and commit method. It's from Ben Lamort. If you're familiar with him, he's really kind of a rock star in the industry, okay, in the OKR space. But his scoring method uses stretch, target, and commit. And so essentially, what that means is that your stretch goal is at 10%. Okay, that's a 10% likelihood that you're going to achieve that. your target is set at a 50% confidence that you're going to hit that. And then your commit, you're setting that at a 90% confidence level that you're going to hit that. Okay, so just a little bit there on the three different scoring methods. And then here we have some examples of a metric baseline and a milestone key result. Okay, so with our metric, improve that customer NPS by 10% from 4.1 to 4.5. Okay, so it tells us where we're at and the target that we're going for. In terms of baseline, establish a baseline customer NPS score of 4.2. Okay, so even though we're establishing a baseline, right, we've still given some consideration to what we think that baseline should be based on what we know about what we're doing here, right? And we may not hit a 4.2. That's okay, right? But that's what we're going for in terms of establishing that baseline and estimating what that baseline may be. And then launch our customer NPS program. That's a milestone key result there. And here I have by end of Q2. And the reason I've highlighted that is because we do see organizations that will include that as part of their OKRs, okay? But it's assumed that we are going to hit it by the end of Q2. With OKRs, the assumption is that if you've got that tactical OKR, the end of that cycle, whatever our goals are, our goal is to hit it by the end of that cycle, okay? So we don't need to necessarily call out by end of Q2 if our OKR cycle ends at the end of Q2, okay? All right, and here we have our OKR cycle. We've got three different sections here. We've got the deployment coaching phase, the training phase, as well as the cycle coaching phase. And a couple of things to note here with the deployment coaching phase. You've got three buckets there, strategy and why OKRs and why now. And the reason we talk about that is going back to why OKRs and why now, right? Why are we adopting this framework? Why is it important that we adopt OKRs right now? What is it in this moment in time? Is there some threat to the market that requires that if we don't react to this threat, that we will no longer be in business, right? Or is there some opportunity that we have to take advantage of right now, right? This opportunity to work with this partner that is amazing, that is going to bring us, a wealth of customers and so forth, right? Why are we doing that? And then we from that, we take that and we back that into our strategy, right? And so understanding why OKRs and why now helps understand and helps develop that strategy, okay? We look at change management and the components of change management, identifying the right teams that we're going to use to implement our OKR program, the right areas to start, the team members that will become assume those OKR roles and those responsibilities, right? And how is rolling out this program going to affect our organization, right? And having that change management discussion and understanding what change management means when rolling out that OKR program, okay? And then having the conversation around the implementation parameters and understanding, what the answers are to those questions that we were talking about. And the training piece, there we focus on training, right? We focus on understanding what OKRs are and what they aren't. We understand the difference between a good OKR and a bad OKR, and we go through workshops to help develop our OKR knowledge and to develop that OKR muscle memory, right? And by doing so, we're also creating our strategic and our tactical OKRs. Those strategic OKRs being those company OKRs that we're creating with our leadership team, right? Our C-suite, developing those strategic company OKRs, and then those tactical OKRs being developed by our departments and our lines of business, right? Those being those quarterly OKRs that we're going to execute on throughout the quarter and throughout the year, okay? And then cycle coaching. This is where the rubber meets the road. We've got our set, align, and publish, and this is where a tool like Synergita is ideal for that, right? What we've done here is that we've aligned on the OKRs that we're going to use for the upcoming cycle, that will be in place for the upcoming cycle. We've iterated on them, so we've aligned on what our strategic OKRs are as well as our tactical OKRs. We've published them in our tool, right? So we publish them in Synergita, and that's our source of truth now for our OKRs. And so we've had that conversation, okay? But then we get into the check-in and monitor piece, and that's where we're checking in on a regular basis. We're doing our weekly check-in, our Monday check-in, right? And we're going through those ceremonies that are so crucial in the OKR framework being effective, right? And so that's that check-in and monitor piece where we're tracking our OKRs and we're adhering to a regular cadence as part of that OKR framework. Okay, OKR scoring. There we're updating our OKRs at the end of the cycle, right? So it's our opportunity to look back and to grade ourselves. How well did we do, right? What could we have done different? And to take those learnings. And that's part of that reflect and reset piece where we're reflecting on the OKRs and those learnings after and that grading piece, right? But then we're also resetting for the upcoming cycle, right? What are we taking from the past cycle? What are we getting rid of? We have that conversation of what carries over versus what is new, and that's part of that reset piece. Okay, so those are the three different phases, phases in your OKR cycle. Okay, so you might be thinking to yourself, Jim, that was a great recap, but what does it all mean exactly? Well, I'm here to help you kind of understand how it all comes together, and with this slide here, what we're trying to communicate is really just what happens at the different layers within the organization and how it all starts to come together. And we'll get to that point where we go from strategic execution to initiatives that we can measure our progress against. Okay, so for example, here what we have is we've got a couple different levels. We've got our level 1, which is our C-suite, and then we have level 2 and 3, which is really kind of that director level. Okay, and some of those senior roles within within level 2 and 3. And then we have level 4 and 5. That's really where our teams are, right? Where the individual type of work is being done and that work by the teams is being done, right? This is where our initiatives happen. So, but let's take a look at what happens at level 1. Well, at our C-suite level, we spend some time with deployment coaching and training, right? That's kind of going back to those 3 different phases of the OKR cycle. So we spend some time at level 1 with the deployment coaching and training there, but we also spend time on why OKRs and why now, right? That happens at your leadership layer at that C-suite where we identify what is our strategy, right? Why are we doing OKRs? Why is it crucial right now, right? So that's where those conversations take place, and that leads into our strategy, our strategic OKRs. Okay, so that helps us create those annual OKRs, those company OKRs. Okay, but then we're also talking about the implementation parameters, those 10 key questions. That's done at your C-suite as well. And then the emphasis on OKRs and change management, as well as psychological safety. That's really digging into understanding the importance of psychological safety when implementing your OKR program and the different aspects of change management that affect your OKR implementation. Okay. And then we're also creating shared OKRs there, and that's the beauty of working at that layer, right? So the conversation here no longer becomes what are marketing's top priorities, what are sales top priorities, what is product's top priority, right? And so on and so forth. We get away from having those top priority conversations, and then we focus more on what is the priority for the organization, right? What is best for the company right now? And by doing so, we're creating those shared OKRs at our leadership layer, and then we'll be creating shared OKRs at our department level as well, right? So that's a little bit about what happens at level 1 within the organization. At level 2 and 3, there we're also doing training, right? Training occurs at all different layers within the organization. If you're participating in the OKR program, you definitely want to receive training on it and understand, what it is, what are OKRs, right? How do they function, and so on and so forth, right? So make sure we get that training at all different layers within the organization for those participants in your OKR program. And level 2, level 3, we're building our tactical OKRs, okay? So that's those quarterly OKRs that we're developing. So we're having conversations between our C-suite leaders with our directors, right? And then those directors are then taking that back to the teams and the team leads to create those initiatives that we'll be working on throughout the quarter and throughout the cycle, okay? We're also looking at the implementation parameters from the perspective of what are the roles there, right? How is my role within the OKR program changing? Am I becoming an objective owner? Am I a team lead, a key results lead, right? So on and so forth. So we start to have those conversations as well. And there too, we're creating shared OKRs, okay? So we're creating shared OKRs across product and engineering, marketing, and so on and so forth, right? So that's what's occurring at level 2 and 3. And then at level 4 and 5, that's the bottoms up alignment piece that we had talked about, where we talked about how we want that input from the teams to contribute to the key results, right? Taking into account the business as usual stuff that they're going to be working on, right? And really contributing to the outcome of that key result, because they're the ones that are committing to it, okay? And there too, we spend some time with our weekly check-ins and updating that confidence level, right? That's all occurring at level 4 and 5. And there too, draft, publish, and track. That's where we're working in a tool like Synergita, and you can see that Synergita really kind of spans throughout the organization in terms of strategic OKRs at the company level, down to the initiatives that the teams are working on. Okay, so really just kind of a snapshot there of what occurs at the different levels within the organization, as well as the roles and kind of where they fit within the organizational hierarchy there as well, okay? Okay, so this brings it all together for us, okay? So what we developed at our level 1, right, with our C-suite, with our leaders, we developed our strategic OKRs, okay? And in this case, our OKRs are to provide small businesses with the opportunity to grow and succeed by becoming the market leader for small business financing, okay? Our key results: grow market share by 20% and scale our tech stack by 30%, right? With that growth, we need to have that technology and that stack that supports the growth that we're shooting for, right? So we've got to scale our tech stack by 30%. So that's what's happening at the strategic company level, okay? So this is our annual OKR. From a tactical perspective, our OKR there is to be the product of choice for small business financing. So that's what we're going to be focusing on during this particular quarter, this particular OKR cycle. Our key results: convert 35% of freemium users to a subscription. Key result number 2, convert 10% of first-time users to a subscription. And KR3, improve sign-up abandonment rate by 40%. So those are our key results for this quarter, right? Those are going to be the things that we're going to be focusing on, and that's what we're measuring ourselves against. In terms of delivery on that, from a team perspective, the initiatives that we're going to be working on, we may do a 2-month free campaign, right? Might be a marketing campaign that we're going to do. We may also look at a 25% off subscription promotion that we'll maybe be doing there. And then A/B test a new user flow, right? Maybe to affect that abandonment rate that we're working on. But you can see where our initiatives support our key results here. And really, when you think of initiatives, those are the backlogs that we have at the team level, right? These are the things that we're working on during our sprints, right? Our 2-week sprints, if we're software development, and that's what we're building there, right? But essentially those initiatives become the items that are in our backlog. Okay, so here we're just drilling down a little bit deeper into the business delivery side, really at that team level. Okay, so from our previous example, we had a key result to convert 35% of freemium users. We had a key result to convert 10% of first-time users to subscription, and then we had a key result to improve our sign-up abandonment rate by 40%. Okay, so let's look at the initiatives that we did throughout the cycle, throughout the quarter, to impact these key results. So our first initiative there was to run a 2-month free campaign, and we saw a 20% lift in conversions on that, right? So maybe we'll call that a win. Our second initiative there was to run a campaign to reacquire some of those customers that we've lost previously. And let's say we saw a 5% increase in signups, right? That's contributing to converting those users, okay? And then for key result number 2, convert 10% of first-time users to subscription. Our first initiative there was to do a 25% off subscription promotion. And let's say we saw a 33% lift in signups, right? So that we'll call that one a win. But in contrast, we also did a subscription partner where we partnered with one of our partners, and we ran a promotion with them for subscriptions. But let's say we only saw a 3% sign up, right? So maybe not so great, right? But we still saw a little bit of lift, but not what we were expecting. And then in terms of improving our sign up abandonment rate, let's say we ran an A/B test, a new user flow, right? And with that, we saw a 60% lift in signups, testing that new user flow to improve that abandonment rate, okay? And let's say our second initiative there was to refactor the front end code to improve site performance. And let's say we saw a 15% sign up increase there. So these are the things that we do throughout the quarter and throughout the cycle, the initiatives that support those quarterly key results, those tactical key results, right? So really kind of paints that picture in terms of how it all comes together. And so this is really that 5,000 foot view that you're looking for in terms of how we go from strategic OKRs to tactical OKRs to those initiatives, right? And so here we've got that company OKR developed by our C-suite. And what we have here is to provide small businesses with the opportunity to grow and succeed by becoming the market leader for small business financing. And we have our two key results here that we're tracking throughout the year, right? Because our strategic OKRs being our annual OKRs, okay? And then we have our tactical OKRs that we're executing on during that quarter, okay? And here we've got to be the product of choice for small business financing. That contributes to growing our market share, okay? And with that, we have 3 supporting key results that we're working on throughout the quarter, okay? And with that, we've got our initiatives. Again, these are the things that we're going to be working on during the cycle, the OKR cycle, to try to improve those numbers, right? To try to hit those numbers. These are the activities that we work on as part of our sprint cycles, right? Our backlogs and so forth. That's our initiatives, and that's how our initiatives go from supporting our tactical OKRs and how our tactical OKRs support our strategic OKRs, right? So just really kind of painting that picture there. Okay, and let's say we get to the end of the cycle. How do we score it all, right? What does it all look like? Well, in this case, we chose the scoring method, the stretch, target, and commit, that Ben Lamort method that we had talked about. Our objective here is to be the product of choice for small business financing. And our key results, well, our key result was to convert 10% of first-time users to a subscription. And because we're using that stretch, target, and commit method, our stretch goal here was 10% users, okay? Our target was 8% users, and our commit was converting 5% of first-time users to subscription, okay? And here we call out the different confidence levels. Hitting that stretch target was a 10% confidence level of hitting that, 50% confidence of hitting our target, and then 90% confidence of hitting our commit of 5% of users, okay? So here, let's see how we scored ourselves. Well, we gave ourselves a 0.7, meaning that we at least hit our target, right? So we should have about 8% of users. And let's see what we learned from that. Using OKRs as a way to measure progress has been extremely beneficial. OKRs have been helpful for us as a team to understand where we are in relation to our goal. OKRs have challenged us to be more thoughtful with the way we prioritize and with the way we approach our work. If it doesn't get us closer to our OKR goal, then is it necessary? Okay, so just a little bit of learning there, right? But in terms of keep, modify, and remove, what did we decide to do there? Well, let's take a look. So it looks like we decided to modify it. Okay, so we're going to modify this key result from what we had over here in terms of convert 10% of first-time users. We're going to adjust that, but let's see why. Okay, so user subscriptions are core to our product, and we've made significant progress towards our goal of 10%. To date, we have increased our first-time users to subscription from 3% to 8%. And although we missed our key result, we have a number of initiatives that are close to being complete. Upon completion, we should be at approximately 13%, and we would like to modify this key result to reflect a stretch of 15% for first-time users to convert to subscription. And so that's a little bit of the learning, right? And the understanding in terms of why we're modifying. what I like about this is that we have a number of initiatives that are close to being complete, right? And so even though we didn't hit our target, it allowed us to work on a bunch of different things that we're going towards hitting our target, right? And because of that, we have a number of initiatives that are close to being complete, and we estimate a stretch of 15%, right? So again, that's just part of the learning with OKRs, okay? So really just kind of bringing it all together there, okay? So let's take a look at what we learned during this webinar. So we did a learning recap where we did kind of that series recap where we looked at the different webinars up to this point, and that included the Foundations webinar, the OKRs and change management, as well as the implementation parameters and the scoring methods in the OKR cycle, right? So we touched a little bit on all of that, and then we brought it all together by looking at OKRs and business delivery, kind of looking at that hierarchy, that 10,000 foot view of how it all fits in to the throughout the organization, right? That framework there. And then we also looked at the initiatives and the execution and the outcome, really just kind of bringing it all together, how we go from strategic OKRs to tactical OKRs to those initiatives that we're measuring where we're seeing those increases in signups and so on and so forth, okay? So really that's kind of bringing it all together at this point. If you want to learn more about those other videos in the series, you can visit synergita.com /OKR-masterclass, and there you'll get a chance to see the other videos there where we go into a lot more detail in terms of what each of those courses represents. So I want to thank you for your time. If you want to learn more about Synergita, visit synergita.com, and if you want to learn more about Apodaca Consulting, visit apodacaconsulting.com. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.